Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 220 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I am Sarah.
I'm Rob.
And we are just batting 1,000
today,
aren't
set.
we?
Yeah.
My computer has just decided that it is arbitrarily going to lag here while I'm trying to open up the show notes for today. And it has opened up like 4 copies of the same window and then lagged while I was trying to scroll an old show sheet up to the
top
so I could read the intro.
And I'm like, tea isn't even ready yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's
we're all just scrambling today, man. It's been a day.
It's been a day for like 3 days.
Yeah, you've had some unfortunate family business to handle, so it's been a rough day for you.
Yeah.
I just unburied myself from like a week and a half backlog at work. Dealt with a migraine all weekend because my back and my neck were screwed up. Man, I am so ready for Wednesday night therapy night, and thank you for being here with me.
Yeah.
And thank you all in the live show chat.
Yes, we appreciate
for
you
also
all being
here with
around.
us, and thank you every one of our listeners. We love you guys.
We really do. You guys make literally every part of this worth it. Like, I almost sent that out in a message today because to give Sarah a couple moments of breath here and to fill in the gap, I had a death in the family. I'm not going to say it was unexpected, but for those of you who have dealt with it in the past, my aunt in particular, who is my father's last relative, so he is currently the patriarch of the family. She passed on last week, very comfortably, but unfortunately after I'm going to say 2 years of fighting an unfortunate losing battle of dementia and Alzheimer's. And it was hard to watch it all disappear. But one of the things that came out of it, and I found it kind of comforting, and I'm glad my mom was there to really help her through it, was that even though she was losing so much of her memory and so much of her life, she remembered music, and she used to sing a lot.
Yeah.
And that was a huge part of her life. And so when a musician came into the memory therapy sessions to help people, he would always find music that the person knew, regardless of what their background or anything like that. He'd find something that they recognized. And often, even if they couldn't recall how to speak, even they couldn't necessarily read something, they would remember all of the lyrics and the melody of a song because it's mapped differently. And my aunt was one of those people who could just sing, and it was wonderful. And my mom would see how much she would enjoy it. And so it was really nice to hear that, to know that she was still finding enjoyment and being able to bond and connect all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And so if you're hearing lilts and things in my voice, especially tonight, it's that I'm feeling that we were close as a family, but like I didn't see a lot of my aunt. There was a lot of tradition, but that was the big part about it. But mostly, I feel for my parents, who were exceptionally close to her, especially these last 2 years.
Yeah.
My mom took so much care of her. So there's that.
Yep.
So that's me in a nutshell. So
well, here's Wednesday night therapy.
Yes. So here we are.
And here's just surrounding ourselves with loved ones and things that we love.
Yes, very much so. We've actually I didn't know if this show was going to be a big show or a little show, and it got a lot bigger because I went back looking. I'm like, we've kind of done this before, and I'm like, have we? I mean, we have talked about this inside of other shows, but we've never really specifically talked about handling external player motivators. We always talk about plots, we've talked about hooks, we've talked about ways to get them drawn in, we've talked about different players and the kinds of players that sit at your table, but we've never really taken the time to go, okay, put all these pieces together, what does that really look like? And how do we use that in an effective way? And I think we have a lot here to go over, but I'm going to say this. If this is something you're interested in, we did have 2 previous shows that kind of express this in different ways. One was episode 175, which was our Storyteller 1-on-1 on building investment, which I think is a really good episode that we did on getting your players invested in the world and in the story.
Yeah, yeah.
And it touches into some of the hooks and things like that we're going to discuss here that pull into this. The second one was strolling into meta, and that's just the concept of working in meta with your players, that you can break the veil. A lot of the grognards, you know, who had it was always like the wall of the shield. This is where the truth sits, and you learn the pieces of lies that you're going to accept. You know?
Yeah. You behind the screen are the master manipulator, and they never get to peek behind there and see what's really going on. And
they can discover it with dice.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's like, no, that's not. You don't really need to do that. Like, if that's how you run your game, okay. But you actually can be like, hey, come on back here behind the screen. Take a look at this. Tell me what you think.
And it's not even necessarily even you have to go that far, but a huge portion of meta is understanding what your players know, what they believe, so that you can have the story progress in a way that makes sense.
What they expect to happen too.
Yeah,
I think is an important thing.
You have this vision because you have all of the information. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they see is vastly different than you. And sometimes it's cleaner for when you hear it from them, you go, oh, I guess that is exactly how it looks. And if I do this other thing, they're not going to have a clue what it means. I'm going to have to, oh God, I'll have to spell it all out. You know what? I like their idea better.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just works great.
Yeah.
So going through those two episodes are really good. But tonight it's that you may have hooked your players, you may have some investment based on how they're playing, or maybe you don't, but things tend to fall off at a certain point. And like, I've watched a lot of games where people are like, yeah, I ran this as an adventure and my players kept playing, but then it got boring for them. Like, I couldn't keep their attention. Like, yeah, my plot was good, but they really didn't understand why their characters were there.
Yeah.
They finished the thing they came to finish. What's going on now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I even in your game, I had a moment where I kind of sat you down and I was like, I don't know why my character's here anymore.
Yeah.
Literally every attachment she had is gone, and she hasn't been with this new group long enough to form new attachments. So she's kind of adrift at this point, and I don't know how much she cares about their big crusade,
Yeah. Like,
so you came up with a really great thing to get me involved. You're like, what do you care about? You care about safety and family and,
and power.
and power and these things, and I can offer them to you as plot hooks.
Yeah.
Okay, instantly then I was like, oh, okay, now I have to stick around.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So that's where we have to examine that and understand what it means, because like sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes you have players who go from being, I'm the fighter who's guarding the cleric, and now the clerical order recognizes him, so now he has a job. Now it is your job to follow this emissary, this cleric, to do our will. Okay, now I know why I'm here. I'm his guard.
Yeah, sure.
In my game, people pair up. Like, oh, this is my manservant now turned, a partner. And so, yes, of course, I'm going to follow her wherever she goes, So a lot of it sometimes naturally happens, but it doesn't mean it's going to naturally happen for all of your players. Even if they meet reoccurring NPCs that they've built some trust with, yes, that trust can bond, but it also can get kind of boring to a degree. But it takes time to build those trust layers. Yeah. If it's not something that started or meta discussed right off the bat.
Right.
Some systems, literally, you build the town with your players, and they know everybody in town. Okay, they know who they can trust and who they can't. It's literally written in the notes when you started session 0.
Right.
But 4 episodes into an adventure where they came to a town, there's nothing there.
Yeah. And that's really kind of where the heart of this discussion then lies, is like once you've kind of gotten past the like generic motivators of like riches and power and people you've never met before need saving from enemies you've never met before, and you happen to be holding a sword and in the right place at the right time.
You fulfilled the quest.
Yes, exactly. Like, once you've gotten past those things, how do you make your characters, like, really genuinely care and want to get involved and stay involved in things, you know?
Yeah.
So, I guess one of the first questions we ask then is, like, are we talking player motivation or are we talking character motivation? And more importantly, does it matter? Does the difference between those things matter in this case?
I dare say that at the beginning the answer is yes and no. Because most players aren't trained actors. They're not grabbing a role that's been defined, that someone else has explained to them and said, this is a character you shall play, and these are their motivations, bleed it out onto the stage. That's
right.
not happening. It's like, dude, I made a fighter who has a tragic past. I don't even know how I feel about that tragic
past. Be in character for a whole week before a game so you can method act at the table.
Right. It's rare that characters are fully realized individuals with aspirations, goals, directions in their lives, even if it's on the sheet. As such, it is exceptionally hard to get that because you aren't they. That is the character.
Yeah.
It takes time to get to that, and flat out, I'll say this: most people don't have that crap locked down, so it's really hard to make the jump to a character that's in front of you.
It's true. And one thing I'm fond of saying too is that no character survives contact with the table ever.
Yeah.
I every single time I play a game, I have an idea of how that character is going, like what their attitudes, what their hopes, aspirations, how they'll react to certain situations, kind of going in, so I know how I can role play in session one.
Yeah.
Never ends up that way.
No, and I dare say that even if you watch like TV shows, that's often the case. You have like the dumpy, kind of dopey surfer dude. Who comes in and, like, has an aloof existence, right? He's not there to be a bro of the group, and yet is drawn to do things that are with them for some reason, and changes him completely.
Ratings.
Now, exactly. That's usually what it does.
People are like, that character was awesome. We'd like to see more stories of him. Like, oh, okay.
So
we meant for him to be a 5-minute cameo, but I guess he can get his own episode or two.
Yeah, I mean...
Or main plot arc. Okay.
And the other thing that I think happens a lot is that when you start playing the character, you find the parts of you, the player, that fit, the puzzle pieces that lock together with the character, where you two agree on something that happened, and it has to happen. It's hard for you to imagine going through fictitious things in your mind and situations and then keep those as reality for that character until they occur.
Sure.
So it isn't until you sit down at the table with a bunch of other people and go through a tough situation where you have to make a decision before it imprints and you're like, this is how they reacted.
Yeah.
Oh, it's how I reacted. And then now it's there. Now it's a memory. So now you get 10 episodes in and like, okay, I kind of know my character now. I'm not the same person I was at session 0 because experience changed me. Are they still there for the story? Right? Are they willing to be there? Is that the same character? Because at the beginning, they had X interest. Now they're involved. Is that interest still the same thing? Or are they looking for something specific because the story presented it? Like in your case, in my game, you kind of had one vision. You were a guide in the story. That fell away very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say pretty darn quickly. But replacing it with something that your character could attach to, which was this idea that there were powerful items out there, things that could enhance you.
Yeah.
And individuals who could kind of point you in that path while you were doing it.
Yeah.
To give you more of it. And that somewhere inside kind of reignited the fire a little bit.
Well, the core was she wanted to protect people. She wanted to keep things safe and generally cool for everyone around her.
Yeah.
And so her job as a guide was basically making sure that was the status quo for people who journey through the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah.
She gets hired onto this group. This group is like, hey, we've got this bigger thing going on. Like, okay, cool. I can keep them safe and protect them as well.
Yeah.
Then an apocalypse happens. 280 years pass. We get true resurrected into the future. Okay. Now all that stuff is gone.
What is my motivation?
But my motivation remains the same.
Yeah.
who do I need to protect? These people. Oh, and also these new people I just met who I am now emotionally entangled with.
Yeah.
How can I keep them safe? Well, there is a rogue god on the loose. I'm going to need a lot of power to do that. In fact, the more power I have, the safer I can keep them.
Yep.
And that was it. That was the whole motivator.
Yeah. And it's recognizing that, both helping the player recognize that, but also understanding the character and then seeing that all come together.
Yes.
I mean, some people just sit at the table to play the game.
Sure.
Like, you sit down at the table because it's cute mice with little swords and tiny capes, and you're like, this sounds awesome, and I'm in. Right? You're not sure exactly why you're there as a character because you're not thinking about it, you know?
Yeah.
But the other part that always gets me beyond even that is you also have the players who listen to the game. They're watching it almost like a show that they're involved in, and I'm going to call that the Telemundo effect. You need to know what's happening. Like, you want to know what that is. You're shipping something going on there, and you're like,
sure.
I'm down for whatever this is here.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The character might not be, but I'm not here for my character is literally just a camera waiting to see what's going on.
I tend to be like that. I find that I'm pretty quiet at games. I don't like to be, like, the main character that's up in everybody's, that's, like, driving the plot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adore the drama that's going on around me and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the truth behind character motivations is that they're really not actualized until the player loses themselves in the role.
Yeah.
And you hear it with actors all the time. They'll lose themselves in a moment. And like, I was listening to Anna Kendrick talk about one of her most recent roles, where she was in, I can't remember the name of the movie. Please help me, Chad, if you know of it. Where she basically is in a relationship with a very controlling individual, and she goes out to this lake house with her girlfriends, but lies to him and says that's not where she's going. And she ends up coming out of the water, almost drowning, with this other girl helping her. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. Apparently, in that scene, every time they were doing the scene, they were cleaning the sand off of her. And she's wet. And it's really hard to get it off this, like, sweater. And so they're trying to rub it off her. And Anna just got to the point where she was just like, I can't. She couldn't communicate it to them. But, like, the fellow actor and the whole set kind of recognized that moment that she was dropped in character so hard that she was bleeding the lines and the feelings of the character into that moment as an actor, and they just gave her space.
Yeah.
And they were just like,
Just
the
let it
sand is
go.
fine. The sand is fine, you know? And I thought that was really beautiful, that, like, she could lose herself, but I also recognize those moments. When you have something that you feel passionate about happening in the game, and then something binds against it, and you have a visceral emotional reaction to it that makes you move through your character, makes you actually avatar them to the point where you lose yourself in the role and you start blending player and character into the challenge. And it's not something that you can make happen.
Yeah, you can't summon that.
Yeah.
You can't summon that. It has to happen organically in the moment.
And it's hard. It doesn't happen in every game. I've had multiple characters where I've never caught lightning in that bottle.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Doesn't mean I didn't like the character that I was playing. But
Or that you didn't enjoy the game.
No, but it wasn't the same. Like, but when I have, like, Theoday and I've definitely had those moments.
Yeah.
You've seen it happen at the table.
Yes, I have.
And I've had to step away from it in my own mind frame of, like, okay, that got deep. Like, yeah. But at the same time, I learned something more about the character and the experience.
The good thing, too, is that you lost yourself in Theodane, but you still retained yourself enough to, like, not become a menace.
Yeah.
You know, I specifically remember one of those situations where you just turned to Sean's character and you were like, okay, excuse me, but, and this is in character, F you!
I did. I totally just F'd him and then walked out.
It just stormed off.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that was brisk.
Yeah. And
That was amazing.
But it was exactly where it needed to be.
Yeah.
It hit that lane and that line.
It was a great moment in character, but, like, you don't get those moments if, you don't find that engagement. You know?
Right. And you don't have to lose yourself into a
Sure.
character. That is not something you have to do, but there's something special about that, and we wouldn't be storyteller conclave if we didn't talk about going that deep.
Right.
Right. So
So let's actually let's segue a little bit.
Okay.
And let's talk about the different types of motivators, because I think that the thing that I was having a little bit of a problem with when I was like, okay, let's have a discussion about how to motivate players.
Mm-hmm.
And I quickly realized that the answer to that question is which player.
Exactly. No, that's 100% solid.
And so recognizing the different types of players is very important. Now, look, there are dozens of lists of categorizations of here are the different types of players you'll find in your TTRPG. Here's 20 different types of players. Here's 8 different types of players. Here's the 3 different types of players. They've all got different names for them, etc., etc.
Yeah.
We're not going to drown you with a categorization list here. I found a couple that I liked.
Okay.
That I think kind of explain them, and I'm going to go over them quickly because I think we all know people like this. And keep in mind, first off, there are no judgments
Whatsoever.
in any of these.
No.
These are all neutral, like morally and ethically neutral typings here. Okay,
Yeah.
so if I say the words like power gamer, like or killer is one on this list.
Yeah.
That's not to say that this is like a murder hobo that will be disruptive to your game.
No, they could
Okay.
be anybody.
Second off, that we are all blends of these different types.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is purely one or another.
Sometimes it's system to system, sometimes it's table to table, sometimes it's game to game. Like I've
Yeah.
definitely been one of these harder in certain games because I chose to lean into that.
Yeah, and certain game systems
Oh,
are
definitely.
environments that encourage and foster certain parts of your personality to come out.
And stories do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. So a couple different things here that I found. There was a Bartle's player types.
I think I remember seeing these.
Now there are 4 of them ostensibly, but each of the 4 is broken into 2 more, so there's technically 8. Okay, you've got your killer, the achiever, the socializer, and the explorer.
Yeah, a lot of these also map to, like, I remember there was a large discussion about this in designing MMOs.
Yes.
Like, how do you make sure you cover the entire graph and psychograph?
Psychographs, yes.
Psychograph. To make sure that you meet your market spectrum effectively. You know, this isn't a demographic. This is literally play type.
Yeah, in fact, I think this list was actually more in reference to video games than they are to TTRPGs. But I think a lot of the same, things. I think there's a lot of crossover there. Enough that it's applicable to our discussion.
Well, definitely, especially with MMOs, because you get a much larger pool all at the same time.
Yeah.
And versus, like, at your table, you may have 2 of the same thing.
Right.
And 2 other
Right.
people, so,
Yeah. That's not even enough to do a dungeon in an
Yeah,
MMO.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
So the killer's kind of broken in between 2 things here. There's the killer and the competitor. The killer enjoys conquest and winning. Okay, they're the ones who can go out and they're like, we beat this big boss, and that makes them feel good. The competitor enjoys a challenge. We beat this boss on hard mode, and that's fulfilling. Okay. Then you've got the achiever. The achiever's broken into the collector and the expert. The collector wants neat stuff.
Yeah.
That's their
Straightforward.
stuff motivated. The expert wants to accomplish a great goal or become the best at something. Okay.
I can see that.
I want to become the best blacksmith.
Right.
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 There's the socializer. The socializer's broken into the rock star and the coach. The
Okay.
rock star wants to be adored. They want to be the center of attention. They are going. The more friends that they make, the more people who adore them, the better they feel about it. Whereas the coach thrives on cooperation and teamwork. Okay, if they can facilitate their team winning, that's when they feel good. And then you've got the explorer broken into the detective and the navigator.
Yep.
The detective wants to dig into things and discover the secrets and piece things together. This is a big part of like why lore junkies love Dark Souls
Yeah.
of all games.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to dig into, little lore nuggets scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
That if you read the item description on this helmet and that sword and this coin, it tells a story.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Yep.
That's the detective. And then of course the navigator wants to see new places, have new adventures in different venues, and just they want the fresh experiences.
Yeah, I loved being the navigator in a lot of MMOs. I just wanted to see the world.
Yeah.
I didn't even care about fighting anything. Like, let me climb to the top of this place and look what's over the edge of the wall.
Exactly. I remember you telling me in one, like a beta, was it the beta test for like New World or something like that? You were like, I just ran east.
Yeah, naked ran east until I was going to hit a coast or die.
Yeah,
and
you're like,
times.
it took me 3 hours, but I ran east.
Yeah. Yep.
So those are some great player types there, and again they lend into what their motivations are.
Yeah.
The other one that I found recently, I was listening to another podcast. Shout out to Poor Hammer, the Warhammer podcast. Started listening to them recently, and they're just a great couple of guys there. And they were talking about Magic the Gathering specifically, but Wizards of the Coast to come up with these 3 types that they use. I think just internal for like marketing.
Yeah, I've heard the types. I can't remember where I heard them referenced, but I think it fits very well in that design. I really do.
But these are personality types that they talk about of why people want to play Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
But I found them pretty applicable to TTRPGs as well.
Yeah.
You've got the Timmy, the Johnny, and the Spike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Timmy likes using big, flashy things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in like the Warhammer 40k sense, that's like they want the biggest, most bombastic-looking model.
Yeah.
They don't care if its stats suck. They don't care if it doesn't fit tactically with their army.
Mm-hmm.
They may never win with the thing. It may get blown off the table in turn 2. But damn it, that model looks cool.
Yeah.
So you translate this to something like D&D, and it's like they just want to use Wish.
Yeah.
They want to use Meteor Swarm.
Yeah.
They want to get that 17th level ability that allows them to attack 17 times.
Yeah.
And crit on 15 pluses or whatever,
Yeah.
Because it's cool.
Yeah.
They want to have great moments like this. I had quite a bit of Timmy in me when I played in your D&D game.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, at a formative age, I played Final Fantasy X.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, you can summon a creature that is pretty common to Final Fantasy games named Shiva, who is basically an ice goddess.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular one, she drifts down from the sky. She blasts your enemies with a gale force, like 100 mile an hour icy wind that freezes them.
Mm-hmm.
Like icicles literally form at like a 20-degree angle.
Yeah.
Off of them because the wind is blowing them horizontally.
Mm-hmm.
And once all your enemies are good and encrusted in ice, she waits just a moment, smiles, snaps her fingers, and all the ice shatters. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the most badass thing in the world.
Oh, it looked fantastic.
So all these years later, I am playing Ravana, the ice wizard, in your game. I get 5th level spells. I grab Cone of Cold. And I think to myself, well, hell, I can do the Shiva maneuver now.
You definitely could.
And so whenever I could in game, whether it made sense or not, whether it was the most optimal move to do or not, I would always follow up a Cone of Cold with a Shatter spell. Because that was just the move.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't care what was going on, man. I don't care who did what in that combat, what the story implications were. Man, if I got to pull my Cone of Cold Shatter combo, I was a happy camper that game.
Yep, very much so.
Several times you were like wishes and stars. What was your star? I'm like, I did the combo.
You did the combo. Yep.
I did the thing.
Yeah.
I'm the ice princess.
Yep. And that was one of the reasons why I leaned into it for your bad guy kill. The one you wanted to kill.
Exactly.
I gave it exactly what you wanted.
Exactly. You knew that was a motivator for you. You knew I wanted to kill him that way. So
I had the whole thing done in a shadow so that you had to walk upon it to like walk in and realize you had done it. Like and make the decision of that was cool.
That was really cool. Yeah.
That
guy needed to chill out.
Oh, jeez. Are we going there now?
No, we're not.
Okay.
All right. So the next one, yes, thank you, Knox in the Box in the live chat. It is exactly the gif of the move I was talking about. If you are a Patreon, you can have access to the live chat channel on the Discord and
join
see.
us.
Then there's the Johnny.
Yeah. I kind of feel like a lot of my characters end up being the Johnny because I tend to put my character into a point where he's showing off skill sets. Like, they are a personal something. They need to make bonds with other people or connect in some way or show off in some way of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a power trip. It's just a, like, hey, this is who I am, you know, kind of thing. And it's some of it's limelighting, some of it is not. Some of it's just sitting in the background, like, doing the thing that you do. Like, a lot of my hacker characters were this way.
Yeah.
Where it was like, what do you do? I hack. What else do you do? I said I hacked.
Right.
Like,
I also drink coffee while I hack. What more do you want?
Like, sorry, dude, you put me on the job for one thing, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Exactly.
You know, kind of thing. If you needed me to kick ass, you should have asked a different dude. You know,
got one job in the Shadowrun. It's stupid, but I'm going to do it.
And I'm going to do it better than any of you guys. But the idea that feeling as the Johnny is to make something work that seems unintuitive and keep it fun. Like, make it the fun of the thing that you do.
Yeah. It's a form of self-expression is what it is. Like, I wanted to do this thing not because it's the most optimal or because it's the most flashy, but because I thought it was a neat idea, and I think I can make it work.
Right. And you could say, like, well, that sounds a lot like Timmy, but the answer is it's a motivational act, not so much like I'm pizzazz. You know, like, which is kind of the cross between the two of those. The Johnny thing, I would say, tends to dig more into interpersonal reasons for what they're doing.
Yes, very much
Whether
so.
it's their career or something they're trying to do as their career, or even just like, you know, my thing is finding family. And they just try and find as much family as they can.
Yes.
All those fit into it. I tend to think the Johnnies of the story are often the people who collect every puppy and fox and whatever animal. Like, they're there for that. You know, if you bring a baker out and give it a name, you've already given the Johnny what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So it that kind of a thing tends to pull those types of personalities toward them. And the last one, I mean, Spike kind of calls itself what it is. Yeah. I mean, if you've ever sat in a room and looked at somebody and said, "We're playing a TTRPG," realize this isn't a board game.
Yeah.
But I'm going to win.
That's a Spike.
That's a Spike.
I mean, ordinarily we would call these people power gamers in a lot of instances, but it's just they're look. These are games.
Yes.
RPG stands for role-playing game.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at games and say there are win conditions.
Yeah.
And those win conditions may be amorphous. They may change with whatever the story is. But, you know, God has helped me. There's a lot of YouTube channels and stuff like that, and Reddit posts and forum threads dedicated to how to build the most optimal warlock in Dungeons and Dragons. So there's a lot of spikes out there, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And again, that's not to say that this is a bad personality type. We make no ethical call on this.
None.
But the way that some people have fun with role-playing games is seeing what they can take the system, regardless of the story, and see how they can most optimize the system.
Yeah. And I would say, for me, I have been a Spike in some games because the game wants you to be a Spike.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you've got a Grognard sitting in front of you running the game, their job is to murder you.
A Grognard, by the way, in case anybody does not know the definition of that word, is an old player who has survived the OSR days of 2nd edition D&D and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, tends to not blend a lot of story, tends to do direct combat, dungeon-y things, bring it back to basics.
Yes.
And in that sense, I'm not discounting your fun. That is a total thing. But I've been in those games where it's like, okay, this person is clearly running the game that way. I'm going to work on my character. I mean, I remember a game where Overwatch literally made a spell-slinging archer, where every arrow was spell-enhanced. Effectively were magical arrows that were scrolls he was shooting.
Yeah, I've run that in Hades before. I know how powerful it is.
Yeah, and just to take out the DM, basically. Firing arrows through the NPCs to take out the DM.
Yup.
But, I mean, And that's fine. That can be a lot of fun. I mean, in some games,
sure.
like, everybody's a Spike trying to just
Sure.
chew their way through things.
Absolutely. And
Why
like,
not?
look, nobody likes losing.
No.
You know, I mean, it can be dramatically compelling to lose, but you don't like it necessarily, you know?
Right.
So why wouldn't you feed your inner Spike?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you set yourself up for success, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, no, it's absolutely understandable. Like I said, no moral failings there.
Yeah.
So, now that we kind of understand that there are a bunch of different things that motivate players,
And
we've talked a bit about what those things are,
There's psychology. Yep.
and how different people are blends of these things.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the investment then and payoff? Like, how do you get from this person's a Timmy, or this person's a killer, or an explorer, or whatever, to how do you implement that into your game? How do you even discover that they are those personalities in the first place?
I mean, I've seen the silly thing where literally people hand out questionnaires before their first game session.
Here's your Myers-Briggs personality
Exactly.
test. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, first off, that's not going to help once the game starts rolling.
True.
Because you will change.
True.
You just change. We've often said, just ask.
Yeah.
And ask often. Because if you see a change, ask about it. Because there may be a change going on there. It may be weeks between game sessions, and in those weeks they think 100 times faster than their character did. And now the following week, they kind of feel differently about that last thing that happened.
Yeah.
And they may not tell you, they may just start playing, and then you're like, well, that's different.
Yeah.
Like, how do I do that? And so, the players don't always know what the character wants. But if you present them with questions about certain things that even you're questioning, it gives them the time to work through it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, you know, anything terribly complex. It'll literally just be like, hey, how you feeling about this particular character? What do you think your character's thoughts are?
Yeah. And often...
Oh, that guy? F that guy. Oh, okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, especially before you start doing something with, quote, that guy.
Uh-huh.
Like, as a storyteller, if you've written some things about that guy because you have ideas about what the character might think, you're already going too far.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea, truthfully.
Sure.
You know, as much as we like to say the plot doesn't last when the players hit the table, NPCs' motivations need to be their own motivations, not something based upon what you believe the PCs are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Ask. Like, get into there. In lieu of that, you know, if you're not one to ask, there's nothing that says you can't create a challenge that is simple to understand but hard to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the trolley incident kind of a thing where literally they are recognized to do something, but to do that they have to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, now they either get this or they get this, and that break should be what you're trying to find out the truth about.
Sure.
And sometimes they're not prepared to answer at that time. Sure, let them think about it. There shouldn't be a thing like the direct trolley issue of like, TikTok, people are going to die in 5 minutes. Okay, that's a little harsh. But like if you're given the choice where like, okay, you guys just captured the bandits, and they gave up. Okay, great. They gave up. Yeah, so we're gonna round them up. The guard will probably make a decision on what kind of punishment they'll receive, whether they'll go to jail or just whether we'll just kill them out back here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does the player care?
Right. Is just murdering a bunch of surrendered bandits, like, is that on the table? Is that a thing that we're gonna do?
Yeah.
Guys,
How
how
do we
feel about this?
It's the Jon Snow moment of like, here's the sword, sir. The execution happens out back.
Yeah.
And now it's like, do you take the sword and go do the job?
Or do you tell your friend and commanding officer or whatever to go shove the sword?
Or just like, this isn't
Preferably
me.
not into a bandit.
This isn't me kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Or worse, and this is the outro to this, which is always my favorite, because it brings up the Expanse, is the sword gets handed to the NPC that they very much like, and that NPC is not a killer.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very questioning whether or not they can do the thing. Do they encourage them, or do they take the blade from their hand?
One of the best scenes in The Expanse. I know just the one you're
The
talking
Amos
about.
scene. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
You're not that guy, but
I
I am.
Like,
Oh.
but and that's the thing is, if you can present, you don't always have to give the choice to the player to do the thing, but you can give them the choice to assist someone else either into it or
Yeah.
out of it.
Sure.
And that right there could be a much harder decision to make than doing it themselves.
Yeah, yeah. The trick is that the reason this is on the list is because you're gonna. It's only through these having to make these hard decisions you're gonna start figuring out real quick what your players or what your character's about.
Yeah.
You know, this is a situation when you're faced with a big moral dilemma and you really don't know what to do about it as a character, that you're going to have to make some choices.
Mm-hmm.
And as the storyteller, you get to watch that character make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to then collect a lot of data about what drove that decision. Talk to your player afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
What made you make that decision?
Yeah.
What was going through your head when you made that decision?
Yeah.
Why did you choose A over B? What would have happened if you'd have chosen B? How close to choosing B were you?
Yeah.
You know? Was it a like, oh, I could never and you chose A? Or was it a, oh wow, do I choose the crappy thing with a good outcome or the good thing with a crappy outcome, you know?
Yeah.
And you're going to learn a lot about what goes through your characters' heads, and all of that is going to help you figure out what motivates them.
Yeah. And then I think the next step right back after that is asking the question in story about that thing and finding, was that just a slip?
Mm-hmm.
You know, was that them pushing their darkness and now you can question them pushing that darkness?
Sure.
Or was it a matter of like, oh, you're a leader, but you're that kind of leader?
Yep.
You know?
Make that action have consequences and see how it plays out, not only in the short term, but the long term as well. And that's an important character building moment for you right there.
That keeps the interest up too, because now they're like, oh, there's more of this going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're going to figure out a lot of good motivators for your player right there, watching them deal with that situation.
And I'm going to say this, that also builds upon the character, the Telemundo, who is going to watch that situation and grab a bag of popcorn and just slowly eat more. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here.
So they're doing this kind of stuff presents its own level of engagement that keeps the player interested for what's going to happen to their character next, what the next piece that's going to push that. The idea being that that the end is what keeps them engaged and pushing. Also the idea that, you know, it's good to keep them engaged because now they're not going to put their character doing stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to take that step back from danger because they're like interested in figuring out what's going to happen to their character.
Sure.
Because within the story, a lot of people lose the mindset and they're like, I'll just make another character.
Yeah.
But once they're invested in their own character and their own character story, they tend to not want them to die. Like,
Yeah.
That's the thing, you know? Like, I kind of want this. It's where I keep all my stories, you know?
Yeah, it's where I keep all my stories.
But, like, you know...
Slaps the top of the character sheet. This baby can fit so many stories in here.
Exactly. But it's the truth, is at a certain point, you're like, I like this thing now. Like, I can't just replace this.
Yeah.
I kind of want to keep this around.
Yeah, self-preservation and attachment is a pretty big motivator.
Yeah,
so.
and also, in the same regard, if you've got that player who is watching something unfold,
Mm-hmm.
and their character is invested in how those interactions occur, I kind of still want to keep that investment. Bringing in another character, those people don't know them.
Yeah.
There's no trust there.
Yeah.
So they're part of it. They're maybe even the motivating reason why something might be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the ones who they believe are pushing all the balls in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So...
All right, so one question I've heard a lot about, like, player motivation in general is, okay, so I have enticed a player. They've become attached to some aspect of my story, but that aspect takes them entirely off into left field, and that's not where the plot's going. And now they're, like, trying to chase, tilt at some windmill way over there, and I want them to go rescue the princess from the dragon, and they're just... not interested.
Quantum plot hooks?
Quantum plot hooks, yeah.
That is always the answer. The answer is it's fine. You can always work, as long as there is interest, you can work with the interest.
Yeah.
But without interest, it's very hard to get them to go into the cave.
That's true. And you see quantum plot hooks. I think that's half of the answer.
I think it is.
Okay. The more full answer is that you take that interest that you think branches off into left field away from your plot, and like a basket weaver, you're going to grab that offshoot, that reed, and you're going to bend it back into your plot and weave it right back in. Okay?
Yep.
They're still going to chase after it, but now it's going to point at your plot again.
Yep.
Okay? So, your player has become infatuated with the farmer's daughter in the village they're in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? First off, good on you.
Yep. Solid.
Second off, now she's part of the plot. Now, this can happen in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But if you're interested in that farmer's daughter and not the plot, then the farmer's daughter becomes the plot or part of the plot, and you're going to be looped back in.
Yep.
Okay. So, easy one off the top of my head, probably the first one everybody's thinking right now listening to this, kidnap her, drag her to the dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one the goblins kidnap.
Yep.
Boom. Now you're invested in wanting to find her and get her back because you're infatuated with her, and you're going to go fight the goblins in the dungeon, which is what I wanted you to do in the first place. Boom. Done.
Mm-hmm.
Have her provide meaningful clues or a service while on downtime.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay, sure, you can be infatuated with the daughter. Okay, maybe we're going to take a little break from the dungeon crawl now, or whatever it was we were doing. She can tell you a story about the dungeon because you've taken the time to develop a social bond with her.
Mm-hmm.
Be it romantic or friendship or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, over a bottle of wine, she's going to tell you some ancient lore that's going to be helpful for you in the future.
Yep.
And therefore, your investment has paid off.
Yep.
But she has pointed you towards the main plot to be able to use that information.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Have her become interested in becoming
I love
an adventurer.
that. Like one of my favorite ones is the I'm interested in this person. This person is going on an adventure. Crap, I'm going on an adventure. Like
Yeah. Absolutely. It happens more often than you think. I mean,
Yeah.
People pick up and move whole cities just because, their loved one, got
Yeah.
a new job or something like that.
Sure.
Like, it's scary. I don't know anyone there. I'll have to find a job. We might be couch surfing, but I'll do it for love.
Yeah.
It's a story that happens every day.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Modern.
Constantly.
You know?
And so that using that metaphor can be exceptionally powerful.
Exactly. Who's to say this farmer's daughter doesn't go, I could do that. I could wield a sword.
Let's do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's a dangerous place. Then you shouldn't go alone.
Exactly. Exactly. I tended to your wounds when you came to my house. I can tend to them in the dungeon as well. Let's go, you know? Or, maybe she has, like, the other one I thought was, like, maybe she has a key to a secret part of the dungeon that was, like, passed down through her family for generations, 120 years ago, her ancestors were the ones who built this dungeon in the first place or something like that.
Right.
And she doesn't know what this key does or where it fits to, but she knows that it ties in somehow.
Yep.
And her great-grandmother gave it to her.
Yeah.
On her third
MacGuffin.
birthday,
Yeah.
and it becomes a MacGuffin now.
Yeah.
And now, again, that bond with that character, the person who said, well, I'm interested in dealing with this character rather than going on the adventure, now gets something paid off for it.
Yep.
And gets directed right back into the dungeon.
Yep. I love it all.
So, take that plot and motivate it inwards. Give you a quick example of something I was thinking for my story.
Sure.
Okay, this is actually a little sneak peek and some pretty big vagaries here.
Uh-oh.
All right, at some point, you guys are going to end up in the Imperial City.
Of course.
You gotta.
Yeah.
You can't be in Cyrodiil and not end up in the Imperial City.
That is accurate.
All right, so Thalion, my Sweetums character, hates Daedric cultists.
Who doesn't?
That's a motivator.
Yes, that is.
Okay, that is a killer motivator.
Yes.
He sees them. He wants to destroy them.
Makes sense.
Cool. All right, so that's one motivator. There is a cultist that you have encountered recently that has gotten away from his character.
Yes.
Now, Thalion is also trying to accomplish a great magical goal that will require special tools.
Yep.
This
Achiever.
is another motivator. It's called the Achiever.
That is very much Achiever.
All right. So since the party's going to end up in the Imperial City at some point, and I know he's going to want to kill cultists, and he's going to want to get these tools, so this could go as Thalion dragging the country, or the group across the country, hunting down not only the cultist that eluded him,
Mm-hmm.
but also the tools he needs for his personal quest.
Yep.
And all of that just distracts from the main plot, because
course.
he's got his own little Don Quixote thing going on.
100%.
Or it could go, you guys go to the Imperial City on main plot business, because you need to be there for main plot reasons.
Of course.
While you're there, you cross paths with this cultist that
'Cause why
Thalion
not?
hates. Because why not? Where else is she going to turn up, right?
Quantum plot.
And it so happens she has one of the tools that Thalion is looking for,
What?
but she needs him to do something. Like, look the other way, let her get away, and
Right,
she'll
right.
give it to him, you know?
Right. Oops, I'll drop this.
Exactly. So, like, all of a sudden now, we have this gigantic motivator that is just drawing this one player. You could use it as a distraction, but you could use it as the main thing in your plot.
You can weave it in and tie it in.
And now all of a sudden you've got multiple different motivators pointing your characters inwards towards your plot.
Yep.
All at the same time.
And this is why we don't write more than scaffolding.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't know what's going to motivate them.
I had no idea this cultist was going to exist as four game sessions ago.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And I don't think I really truly understood his whole I need to build this thing to accomplish the big magical goal until about 2 game sessions ago, when I had an out-of-character conversation with him one night at like 11:30 when we were trying to fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, without those things, without talking to my player,
Mm-hmm.
without watching how, you know, they handled the experience of playing their character at the table, I wouldn't have known neither of those motivators existed.
Yep. Yep.
And now I know exactly how to tie him into the plot, and actually, it's a really good plot. So
Yeah. Hey, why not?
yeah.
All right. Questions I think are excellent.
Questions.
There's some that are very deep, so I think we should get to them.
Let's go. Let's hit the road.
All right. Nevim's got a few. Are player and character motivators the same? On surface, I will say yes. In practice, no. But it tends to be more yes, because your player is the one who's avataring the character. And in the end, you need to understand the psychograph that they're playing the game based upon.
Yeah.
And that will motivate through to the character.
I think oftentimes, too, it functionally doesn't matter, simply because you're going to have people who go, I understand, I as the player understand this is not the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But my character thinks it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And it'd be fun if I caused a little chaos, if I did the wrong thing.
Yep.
You know?
Yep, exactly. And that's the understanding that, like, what motivates the character should encourage the player.
Yes.
And that's why it's kind of a yes.
It's symbiotic, essentially.
Very much so. Very much so.
So how do you tell something is a player motivator? Simple. You see the look in their eyes when it happens.
They talk, they move faster, they lean into it. Like, it's the chips on the table that they can't stop eating, you know?
It is the inconsequentials.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes they will tell you. We've talked about, you know, doing breakdown at the end of, you know, your wishes and stars, your roses and thorns, whatever you want to call it, at the end of your game. Ask your players straight up what they liked, what could make your game better next time, what they hope to see next time. Those are all going to, you know, be pretty big indicators. But yeah, when you say, you know, this thing touches off that thing, and bam, there's these gigantic explosions, and the explosions rip through the fireworks factory as it all goes up, and you watch that one character's eyes just go wide like a cat watching a sparkly toy dangled in front of them, and you're like, okay.
They
Okay.
like that.
Yeah, that's that person's inner Timmy.
Yep.
You know?
Yep, that's what they want. That's what they
They
want.
want the spectacle.
So
Okay.
yeah, so watch for their enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
The player's enjoyment, what steps them just a half step back, and you get to see the truth behind the veil.
Yep.
So,
how do you create a compelling motivator?
So I see this question as a little deeper than the face value of it, which is that compelling motivators come into play when the player becomes the character.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know it's compelling, because it's something that they've dropped into so deeply that they've kind of lost themselves. And you can't necessarily create those, but you can help facilitate access to those by watching what they're interested in and constantly putting the crumbs out there to fall into it.
That is an excellent answer.
So
That is an excellent answer. You can't create them. You just have to kind of find them and allow your characters to lean into them.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's hey, there's a trail here. Let's set up a camera and see what comes through.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The shorter answer I might give that is an addendum to that
sure.
is just simply creating a compelling motivator. Make it personal.
Yeah.
Make it personal. If the character will feel far less motivated the more distance between them, and I mean like emotional distance between them and the thing.
Yeah.
So, in the Thalian example that I gave, he has talked to this cultist directly. He has wiped out this cultist's other fellow cultists to the last man, and has basically sworn his life to doing this as a job. So, if I drop a cultist in front of him, I know that's something that he's going to be like, no, we have to eliminate this person.
Where there's one, there will be more.
There will be more. We cannot let this cancer spread. They are like termites. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see an ant. Kill the ant.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's because it's personal.
Yeah. Just as much as, and that's a great example of like those types of situations, but there's no difference to that to someone who attaches themselves to NPCs and wants to know their stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And wants to be in there. The compelling motivator behind that is alter that person's life, that NPC's life, and watch that player and character change.
Yep. Watch that character uproot their entire routine to try to save that NPC from whatever you've done to them.
And it doesn't have to be huge.
It really doesn't. Put them in a dilemma, and suddenly they're like, guys, we have to fix this.
We have to do something about this. Yeah.
I know, because that's what's happening in my game right now. And what about GM motivators?
I think we had a whole episode on this. I think the best thing, and I'm going to say this as far as from a storytelling aspect, when you see your players motivated by actions that you achieve, you will be motivated to continue the plot.
Yeah.
And to move it in that direction.
Yeah.
Don't sand down your players' emotions and gameplay by going against the grain. That is not what you want to do. Lubricate the story. Follow the flow. If they're leaning in a direction, like you did with cultists, now cultists are a thing.
Okay, you want to fight cultists. Cool. Now there's cultists everywhere.
Yeah.
Screw it. Let's go.
Yeah. Now cultists are the thing, and there's a head to this cult that you could cut off if you can get your hands on it, but it's going to cost you. What is it going to cost you? That guy's daughter.
Yeah.
I like that guy's daughter. Well, now it's a party thing. So,
Yep. We got a dragonborn in my group. Okay, so cool. Dragons are now a thing. Did somebody say dragons? Man, I got a dragon slaying sword. It's plus 12 against dragons. Okay, cool. Now I guess dragons are really a part because I got 2 players invested. Let's go, you know?
Yep. So Knox asks, what's the best way to handle motivators that seem to divide or put the players at odds? This is a hard one because
there are 2 ways you can handle it.
Yeah. My first thought is this, and this is just me. I tend to try not to put players at odds with each other because that can disrupt the game feel at the player level.
Yes.
And it gets real dicey. Like any table will say that. I think the best thing you can do about it, and this is just me, is that if you have 2 players who are coming at odds because of a motivation that's going on, is you make it about both of them having to lose something to succeed.
Yes.
Like, that's it.
We just mentioned the dragon in my game, and it's a game of steal the bacon essentially between the 2 of them.
Yep.
One of them has sworn an ancestral oath to destroy the dragon. The other one is now scrambling to try to find a way to circumvent needing that dragon to figure out who he is and what his powers mean.
Yep.
Because he knows he's not going to be able to stop the other guy from destroying that dragon, and he low-key feels like it needs to get destroyed himself, but it is also the key to his power. Yeah.
So, the second part of that is, do you create or suggest a compromise or leave it up to the players? No. First off, I'm just going to put this out there. The moment that you enter things like that, a compromise, a way to settle, is the moment you've removed their agency within that aspect of the story.
Hard agree.
It is far better to give them both a trolley solution that they both need to lose something with, or are forced to do something hard together to gain something at all, than one wins and one loses.
Yeah. I reminds me of that line from Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh.
I hated that solution. So did I. We compromised.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the best I can say about that one, Knox, is that anytime you're going to do that, remember that you have to think about how can it suck for both of them, and they still win.
And I think this question presupposes that there's animosity between the players that needs to get sorted out by an arbiter.
I think if it's animosity between the players, that needs to be settled outside a game.
Yeah,
Just discuss that out.
Don't solve in-game problems out of game, and don't solve out of game problems in game.
Correct. Correct.
But I think it's okay that you put players at odds. Like on one hand, you can pit them against each other as long as you monitor that situation and you make sure that it's not going to cause animosity between the players. It creates drama between the characters, but not animosity between the players.
Correct.
Correct. I think at a mature enough table, that's not going to happen. Like, I'm not worried about Matthew and Steve being upset with one another because of what Rhaegar and Tristan are doing with this dragon.
Right. And always communicate. Get away from the table for a couple seconds with those two and be like, are you guys cool? Because they may look at you, oh yeah, we talked about this before the game. We're totally cool with each other.
We're high-fiving right now.
Like literally, I'm sending text messages back before checking in and everything.
Going, this is great.
Right.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
we're cool. And at that point, you're like, okay, let me know, what's the safe word? Is it pineapple? Is pineapple okay?
But I think the other answer to that question is, like I said, kind of that weave it back into the story sort of thing. If you've got players at odds that are divided and they both want to go in opposite directions over something and they seriously cannot come to a compromise, and it is getting to the point where they can't reconcile and go in the same direction, find a way for one solution to lead to where the other one is kind of pointing.
Yes.
Just try to weave it back in. I can't come up with a decent example for you, but maybe they both just lose and the game goes forward and it's fine for it. Like, nobody dies or anything like that, but just there's a crappy outcome, the whole thing goes to crap, and neither of them need to worry about it anymore because it doesn't exist.
Right.
And we can all move on as a dysfunctional adventuring group.
Yep. I agree. I agree. Overwatch asks, can you give an example of a motivator that you thought would work well but fell flat?
I can think of one that I killed in the crib before it came to the table.
Matt?
Steve,
okay. Because I remember the Matt one that died at the table.
Oh wow, really? Okay, remind me because I'm not remembering.
The Thieves Guild female face.
Oh, that was.
I think that's a great example.
I thought I recognized a budding romantic interest.
Yeah, it very much looked like it for the rest of the table.
He bought her an expensive bottle of wine and was checking out her legs, shapely and clad in skin tight leather, and he's like, hey, all right, I'm okay with this.
Right.
So I was like, she went to him like at the end of the adventure when you guys were going to be going back to your city, and she was like, hey, if you're ever in Skingrad again, look me up or something like that. And he's like, yeah, I just handed you an expensive bottle of wine because you're a thief, and I knew you were, motivated by wealth. Don't read too much into it. Bye.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't expect I was going to be the one with a bucket of cold water dumped on me.
Exactly. But part of that is that understanding and communicating with the player, because you read one thing, and that's not how the story was going with that.
Yeah.
And it fell dead flat. And you know what? That's okay.
Yeah, it's great.
That's okay.
It was a great moment either way.
And I would honestly say, even if Matt did come back to you and is like, you know what? My character is an idiot and doesn't know how to communicate, and I'm honestly kind of rethinking that moment. And you're like, don't worry, you'll see her again.
Right.
That's all you have to say at that point, because that's a motivator. If she shows back up again, that's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can use the fact that she was slighted and she's never once been denied.
Right. First thing, she just walk up to him and slap him. I'm pretty sure I deserve that.
Exactly. Like, and those are the things. The second part is there something that you would thought was inconsequential turned out to be a big player motivator?
Yeah, I will be dead honest with you. I did not imagine Steve reshaping his entire character's motivation in the world to killing that dragon.
Yep.
I threw that in there for Matthew and Matthew alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a second character entirely hooked on that plot by sheer accident, and it is now his one and only driving force in the world.
Yep.
No idea. Had no idea. But I mean, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I look at it now, and it all makes sense to me how it happened. I can't believe I didn't expect it to happen. But I think I didn't have enough faith in my player to understand the lore behind the Nords and the dragons, and understand the consequences of the Dragon War and who the dragon cults were and all that jazz. I gave him a little side reading to do. I was like, oh yeah, by the way, if you want to check this out, you can. I didn't know he went down like a 3-day research rabbit hole and decided it was all so awesome and he wanted to bring it into the game. He didn't say anything to me about it.
Yep.
I give players reading assignments all the time. Like, oh, hey, if you want to check out the lore on this, this is it. 80% of the time, nobody looks at it. Or if they do, they skim through it just to get a rough idea of what it is, and then, that's it. This guy is like texting me in the middle of my workday going, okay, so this is what's going to happen. And I'm like, holy crap, dude, you have thought about this. This is what I'm going to say to the dragon when I face him in Mortal Kombat. And I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Holy cow, did not expect that at all.
Yeah. I think for me, at least in my last game, I didn't know back in like Act 1 when I first brought the players in what would be motivators. And so I threw a lot of different elements out there, a lot of different NPCs, a lot of different pieces. And I never expected actually Overwatch's character in that my mage or powerful wizard who is into divination to latch on to the character Kaymor. And almost revere him like a creator. And I had to carry that character, that NPC, and used him as basically a guide from that point forward because I knew he was important. I knew he was going to be a cyclical motivator for Overwatch's character every time it came back around, that was going to, no matter what was going on, there were things to listen to right there.
Yeah.
Regardless of where he thought the world was going to go, this guy is telling truths. And that gave, I wouldn't say it was a throwaway character, but it was a character that I was literally just going to have mad. Because he had been thrown in a box and lost to time. Who is this dude? No, this dude has some history. Let's get him fixed. Okay, all right, you guys take him back to the elves, have him fixed. Here's some lore he has. Good. I need to know more. Let's build him a lab. Okay, let's do that. And it was just interesting how much it attached, and I was able to use that character again as a reoccurring NPC who always was a guide, always was a truth to be told. I think the only thing that I had, I think the one that fell flattest for me was when developing the third act with Trev's character, the orc, who was kind of this, who had left his land to be a knight and to have all this glory. And then I presented all of you with like false versions of yourself who were running around basically theatrically playing your characters for the 250 years you guys weren't around. I had this orc who was effectively like a bandit who had joined up to become him effectively and masquerade. And you show up at that dude's town. And I basically did the Firefly Janestown moment.
Yeah.
And it 100% fell flat. He wanted nothing to do with that town. He wanted out of that town as quickly as humanly possible. And I was like, Well, that wasn't a motivation that was going to work. Like, he just
Right.
walked away from it at high speed. Like, the next night, he wanted out of that town.
I was like, yep, don't like it. Bye.
Exactly. I was like, that story's gone. Like I felt very much like Matt Mercer, like, just throw it out the window. Like,
Yep.
that whole adventure's gone. You know
Yep.
what? Throw them away.
Yep.
Just
It's
kill
fine.
your darlings.
You gotta
It's not
kill your
worth it.
darlings.
You
Yep.
got to just walk away.
It's fine. It's fine. If it ain't gonna work, you can't force it.
Yeah. So, all right, we got one more here.
Yeah,
Alright.
so Rook asks, how can screen time be balanced amongst players with different levels of investment in their characters' external goals and storylines, ensuring that those with more complex narratives don't dominate the spotlight at the expense of others who might be newer or not as skilled at telling their own stories yet?
So first off, I'm going to say, I'm going to put this out there. Excuse me. Everyone makes this mistake as a storyteller. It is super easy to be excited and to lean into spotlight characters. It is super easy. Everyone will do it. I still do it. I've watched you do it. It just happens. Because when the story gets motivated and players start talking and they start attaching themselves in and talking to NPCs and leaning into things, everyone at the table is excited. And you want that excitement to stay going, and it's hard to watch the rest of the table. Mm-hmm. It really is. So the first thing I'm going to say is you will never be as mindful in the moment that it's happening as you'll want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. Do not put yourself down for trying to figure out how to balance within a session. It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. But one of the things that you can do, and again, this doesn't always get bit, this hook doesn't always happen and get pulled at, is having other players necessary or intricate or integrated within that spotlight moment. So when that player has an external goal or a drive or a motivation that they're working on, the best thing you can do is tie something else to it to bring them in. It's that Ocean's 11 scene where everybody's coming together and they're just like, okay, why are you here? Well, I'm here because I hate that guy and you're going after him. Great. And, so why the heck am I here? There's a lot of money and I know you like money. I do like money. Mm-hmm. You kind of are looking around the table to see what brings people into it, but oftentimes it's that next person who's just like, you know what, guys, I'm not here for the money, and I really don't give two shits about that guy. And as he's walking out the door, you're just like, by the way, your ex-girlfriend is his personal secretary. And the guy turns right around and walks in and goes, go on.
Did you say we could get to kill Nicole? No, I said your ex-girlfriend works for him, but
yeah,
if that's what you wanted to draw from the conversation.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it's not so much quantum plot hooking, but it is making sure that other people's points are bound into the same weave.
Yes.
So that they have a chance to say, excuse me, did you just say the thing that I've been looking for? Yes. I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead, make your monologue, but when it's all said and done, I'm in on this.
I'm kind of leaning on the basket weaving metaphor again.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
Bending everything back.
Everybody's their own little strand. Just weave them together.
Yeah. And again, I can't say this enough because it is easy when you're sitting down at the table at the end of the night to be like, crap, Mark was basically talking the whole damn time and everybody complained that, like, they had the spotlight, but like they're embedded in it. That happens.
Yeah.
You have to wash that moment, but what you need to do is make sure that the other people's tie-ins, and sometimes those tie-ins need to happen off to the side.
Yeah.
But they need to be part of it so that they can come back to Mark and look at him and say, hey, we just discovered this. That's for your thing.
Right.
And now they're part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, sometimes you need to go to Mark and say, hey, when it's, pass the stick every once in a while too.
Yeah.
And that's a meta thing. That's an out-of-game
Sure.
thing. If you think that they're talking too much at the table and taking the light, pause them. Step them off, after game and be like, hey, I love your energy on the game, but I need you to pass the stick every once in a while, especially when I'm handing it to somebody else, obviously.
Yes. I've got 6 players at my table, and so this is actually a question that is a constant thing that is on the forefront of my mind. of making sure that every one of you 6 players gets sufficient screen time.
Yeah.
And a couple game sessions ago, you decided to take one of our NPCs on a field trip, basically, because you've become very invested in this NPC's life and the outcome of the recent events that have happened to him. So you wanted to try to help him out, and that's a great little thing. So we had this adventure where basically you guys went on a camping trip, and a great portion of the adventure was just you guys talking to him.
Yeah.
And one thing I'd been hearing from Sean is like, well, I don't know what to do with this character. Like, he seems like he's tied to, to Lyrillith's character and stuff like that. Like, you've all got something going on over there, but I don't have an in with that character.
Yeah.
And I thought it's like that's a very valid thing.
100%.
Okay, how do you make a campfire scene where everybody's all just sitting around talking? How do you make sure that people get equal screen time in that, especially when that NPC is tied very specifically to like one person, And that is, you have that NPC invite everyone else at that campfire to talk. I don't know you.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your aspirations.
Right.
Ask insightful questions. That seems interesting, but don't you think this? How do you feel about that weird contradiction you've just expressed to me? Oh, okay, cool. And you? I don't know much about you either. And every character there gets to get a little bit involved because you've used your power as the storyteller to puppeteer that NPC in a way that he turns that spotlight on the character that isn't getting enough spotlight time.
Right. Yeah.
And now suddenly but then the ball's in their court.
Yeah.
The other half of this is that your players need to bite. And I'm going to shine the spotlight on Knox in the box. He's in the live chat right now, and he already said, I feel called out by some of this stuff. So actually, I'm going to call you out a little here, buddy. Because I know we've had this conversation in the past. And that is, Knox tended to be I would say a timid player.
Let me read what just got posted.
Oh, okay.
Just so you got it. What if it's part of my character's design to be a background sleeper character?
Well, buddy, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That the other part of characters getting enough screen time is that when you shine the spotlight on that character needs to do something with it. And if they are either too shy or nervous or whatever to step into the spotlight and take their moment when it is given to them, or if, in this case, you have designed your character to be shy and nervous and and deliberately, as a character choice, not step into the spotlight and do anything when it's shined on you, then there's not much as a storyteller you can do. The ball's in their court.
Yeah. I come back to I want to say it was one of your characters who basically, you were waiting for other players to ask about your background.
Oh, yeah.
And they never did. And you were like, why is nobody asking?
Why is this character such an asshole? Why do they never talk? Has anybody asked him? No.
The Sam Riegel moment? Yeah.
They seem unapproachable and angry. Yeah. That's probably an important thing, isn't it?
And honestly, what I would say to something like that is prompt your storyteller.
Yes.
Give them a way. Give them the way that you need that light to be shown. Because we have a cadre of NPCs and moments. Give us the chance. If we don't know how to do it, there's no way that we can communicate it out to the table to make that moment happen. And that's the key. Like, if you want another player to be interested in your player and your character so that something can happen within story, you have to be part of that equation. And be motivational either through meta or being very direct with the storyteller and saying, hey, I need to expose this part of my backstory. Can we work on that together? Sure, 100%. How would you like to start moving through that? Can we make like a little interlude, or can we do a side scene, or can I add something into a scene where someone shows up and they're like, hey, aren't you so-and-so? And that's the thing. Like, that's what helps expose it. In the case of of Thalion literally having a boat show up and him going down to the docks, and they're like, "You're dead."
You can't be our ex-boss because our ex-boss died 5 years ago.
Yeah, you might look like him, but we are very concerned because your funeral was beautiful. You know? Closed casket, but beautiful.
Yes, exactly.
So it's moments like that. You have to have those exposés to help open the question door to have the players go, whoa. Can we get a minute over in this dark alley with him? Who the heck are you? What the heck is this?
Right.
Like, how do these people not know who you are? Like, your name's on the ship. Technically, it's a family name. Oh, all right, whatever. Like,
sidebar.
Yeah. It's like, are you going to kill him? Just give us a minute. We're not done yet. You know? So my answer to those kinds of to those kinds of things, like what Rook was saying, and leading into to Nox, is communication is the biggest key that you can have, and don't beat yourself up moment to moment.
Yeah,
you will never get it right perfectly because there's just too many variables.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and some of them are entirely out of your control, like the reactions of every player at your table.
And that's night to night.
Yep.
You never know.
Yep.
You never know. So.
All right, next week's topic.
Yes.
Next week's topic, we're talking about making dramatic moments out of small scope issues and impacts.
I like the idea of the butterfly effect in storytelling.
Yeah.
Because we have the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in control, right? So when a player does something simple, a simple act. Some of my favorite simple acts are like players who love taking care of the urchins, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I give alms to the poor. And you're like, okay, let's see how that works out in the end.
Yeah.
You know, it may not work out today,
Mm-hmm.
but what if in like, I don't know, 5 or 6 sessions you see someone who's very similar to the person you've been giving alms to, now with a stack of books in their hands and some relatively nice clothing.
Yeah.
And they come up to you and give you a hug, and you're like, who is this person?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out it's Urchin Carrie. She started going to school with the money you've given her.
Shoot her.
Those books are way over
her level. She's about to start some crap. Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about just making great moments out of very small scope things. Not every game has to be a big, rescue the world from the brink of cosmic destruction. Sometimes you can have really great stories just in a small little seaside town, just making a difference in people's lives. Anyhow, you can find us on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Are we not? Oh, there we go. Okay. Rob is giving me strange looks from the soundboard. And
sorry, everybody.
Anyways, you can listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us up on our Discord. We'd love to hear from you there. Shoot us some questions. Join us in the live chat if you're one of our Patreons. You can find that link on our Twitter as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com.
Yeah, we'd like to thank our Patreon members who do join us in the live chat, as well as some of our named members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, Sam, The Arcane Asylum, Sparkle Motion, Veteran, Hulu, and Sean. We appreciate all of your support. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find them at patreon.com/arcaneanthems or on Instagram at Arcane Anthems. Our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find them at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on YouTube Music. And our outro music, Only Our Footprints in the Sand, by Midair Machine. You can find them at freemusicarchive.org.
And a big shout out as always to our family, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for loving and supporting us.
Thank you.
All of our friends who've sat with us at our tables over the years to give us these great stories to share with you, and you, every single one of our listeners. We love you guys so much.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.